Go ahead and get started this morning, folks. I want to welcome you to the closing session of our conference here, and we have a great presentation. I'm going to introduce our speaker, Junior Tidal. I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. Tidal, there you go. I should have asked. Junior Tidal is a multimedia and web services librarian at the New York City College of Technology, City Tech, CUNY. He received his MLS and MIS from the Indiana University in 2005, and he worked as a museum assistant at the Lexington History Museum in Lexington, Kentucky, before working at City Tech and starting there in April 2006. His research interests include web metrics, information architecture, and usability design. So, Junior, take it away.
Came across when developing our mobile site, some of our obstacles, successes, measuring success, and the future of mobile technology. So, but yeah, basically I'm just going to be talking about using this. This is changing the game. Tablets, smartphones. That's what I've seen our students using with us. So to get started, mobile technology use has been on the rise. Cell phones and tablets is, like I said, a revolution right now, and a lot of our students are using these technologies to do research and to access our electronic resources. The statistic, 46% of all Americans own a cell phone. This is taken from the Pew Internet Research Group. It is a think tank outside of Washington, D.C., and they do a lot of surveys and statistics on digital life in America. And actually, this figure, out of this 46%, there's actually more cell phone subscriptions than there are in the population. So people are having more than one cell phone subscription. Smartphone usage is more prevalent among cell phone users. So what that basically means is that 2 out of every 5 people own a conventional cell phone, and the other people that own cell phones within that figure are smartphone owners. 1/3 of cell phone owners say that their phone is a smartphone, and 3 out of 5 cell phone owners say that their phone operates on a smartphone platform. So that includes iOS, iPhone, BlackBerry devices, Android devices, Windows, and Palm operating systems, and things like that. So more people are owning cell phones, and these figures, they're taken from a survey earlier from this year, 2012, January. So I believe that figure is probably a lot bigger than what it is now. I forgot to mention while I'm doing this presentation, if any of you have any questions at all, feel free to ask. Like to have a little interactivity between you and me, since these donuts are here. The next thing I wanted to mention is e-reader usage. Over 7 months, e-reader usage has doubled, according to Harris Interactive poll. Basically what that means is people are using more e-books, they're using Nips, they're using some overlap between iPads and mobile devices, and they're using Kindles to read their materials. So that's very interesting as well. It kind of parallels what's going on with tablet computers as they're increasing said that between the holiday season of December up until February, the usage or the ownership of tablets has doubled over 3 months. So it's gone from 10% to 19% ownership. So it's just increasing more and more so. Actually on a flight here from New York, while I was walking down the aisles, just in our travel, it seemed like, every person out all the rows, they all had tablet computers. If they didn't have tablet computers, they would have smartphones. What I think is interesting is even if you were in the air, and my flight didn't have Wi-Fi, they were still using these devices, even though they weren't connected. So I find that really interesting. Here, this is again taken from Internet Research. This is a graph of adult gadget ownership. This is between the periods of 2006 and 2011. As you can see earlier here in 2006, it's been kind of low, and the top one is cell phones. But that continues to rise up here when at the end of last year. And then there's some other things going on here on this graph, like up at this top part. This is pretty much the percentage of market penetration. So more people are actually owning more cell phones than anything else on this graph. These two statistics down here, these are ebooks and our tablet computers. And if you look at the end of 2011, you can see that tablet computers have just skyrocketed. Ownership has just gone way up as well as with ebook readers. But there's also a couple of things declining. Desktop computers, they're on the decline. Laptops are slowly selling as well, but not as strong as tablet computers and ebook readers. And MP3 players are actually going down as well. So a lot of people aren't buying MP3 players as they were when they first were introduced. I think one of the reasons why that's happening is because our phones now have the capability to play MP3s. I would also argue that these phones are replacing point-and-shoot cameras as well. Because one of the reasons is the Wi-Fi connectivity. You can share photos with other users. Instagram and Facebook applications and things like that. I feel like those technologies are kind of converging into this one. There. Okay, yeah, now, everybody hear me? Great. Right. So that's adult ownership. And like I said, you can see here that tablets and ebooks and cell phones, they're all on the rise, and everything else is going down. I don't think right now necessarily that these technologies are replacing desktop computers, but there's a kind of like a parallel between what I've seen with our library website is that there's more access using these devices down here at the bottom than desktop computers. I mean, like we still have a lot of access from desktop computers, but we're getting more and more access from tablets and even more so from smartphones. So I think that's really interesting what's going on. So why are smartphones? Why are they becoming more popular and more useful? Well, as I said, there's a convergence of technology. MP3 players, cameras, web browsers, they're all built into the smartphone. And they're also portable, and they're readily available. If you think about the boot time between a desktop computer and a tablet and a smartphone, the tablet and the smartphone is going to boot up faster than the computer typically. The reason why is because of the flash memory that is used to hold all the information in those portable devices. It doesn't require the mechanical parts of a typical hard drive to spin up and to get everything going. So those are a couple of reasons why I think they're becoming a little bit more popular than other things. And also cell phones, they're bridging that access of certain gaps. Another statistic I found is users who have an income lower than $50,000 are more likely to use cell phones to access the internet in comparison to those with a higher income, which I think is a very interesting statistic because if you have the choice, if you don't have enough money, would you buy a smartphone that has the MP3 player, the camera, the apps and things like that, versus a full desktop computer, you're probably going to use a cell phone because it also serves that purpose of texting and voice as well. So the convergence of technology, it's making a huge difference. So, oops, let's go back. So how are libraries using mobile devices? This picture is actually some of my colleagues from City Tech. We were presenting a happy hour wine and cheese event with our faculty, and we were showing them e-readers and Nooks and the Sony e-reader and Kindles, and how they can be used for some of our new ebook collections. I'm sure, like a lot of you, our collections are moving towards more electronic based collections. Ebooks, we're almost out of all print periodicals. We've all gone completely almost to electronic resources. So, but how are libraries using mobile devices? Well, one of these things is Foursquare. I don't know if your institutions use Foursquare. We've started using Foursquare mostly as for promotion and marketing. I know that Cal State Fullerton, they're using Foursquare to promote their library services, to remind students to activate their library accounts, and as well to promote library events whenever students check in. Another public library, Kenton Public Library, they actually award prizes to the Foursquare Weekly Mirror, which I think is really interesting, to promote their libraries as well. So I don't know if I explain what Foursquare is, but it's a social media network, and you can use it to check in with your phone for specific geographical locations. So if you want to check in here at the Tropicana, there's a Foursquare geotag that you can use. The other thing that libraries are using are short messaging services text reference. So text reference it's been around for a little while, but basically it's another way for students to access the reference desk. Students can text short messages or short questions to the reference desk and get reference service support. Librarians will text them back the information that they need. Obviously, this wouldn't be used for deep, hard research because of the limited exchange between SMS texting one another. But what we can do is we can point students in the right direction and give them the kind of resources that they need and that they can access either through their computer or now through their cell phone or tablet. Text is also being used for access services for circulation. So if students have a book checked out, there are certain services where the search system will send them a notice and tell them that their book is due. You can also push holds to students as well and let them know that they have a hold available at the library. So it's really useful also for catalog integration. Basically, if you're looking up a book, you can have that call number texted to your phone. So you don't have to use any paper. You can just look at your phone, go to the stacks, and pull out your book. So that's one way that text services is being used in libraries on mobile devices. The other thing, and I don't know if anyone recognizes this image, it's a QR code or quick response code. A lot of libraries have been using this, and it's been also very popular. Basically what it is, a quick response code is a barcode that you can scan, and embedded within this code is a URL or online resource that will redirect your browser or your smartphone to that resource. It's very popular in Japan and Korea. However, it hasn't really caught on here, and just to give you my personal opinion, I don't think it will. I think QR codes, I just don't think that our phones and hardware is integrated with these kind of readers like in those other countries in Japan and Korea, because their hardware is integrated with a built-in QR code reader. As opposed to our iPhones and our Androids, you'll have to go into those markets, iTunes Store, the Android market, and actually download a QR code reader. And there's also, all kinds of different QR code readers for those two different kinds of markets. So you're kind of overwhelmed with choices on what to download. And it's another step that users have to take in the process to get information. When if you have the choice to see a QR code and take a picture versus just Googling whatever that advertisement is, you're probably going to search for that term instead of taking a picture. Another problem is I live in New York,
and we have a lot of QR codes in the subway stations and a lot of advertisements, movies, films, things like that. But the thing is, there is no Wi-Fi connectivity in subway stations. So even if you have this QR code in the subway while you're waiting for the train and take a picture and get it read, you went to the process of downloading that app and reading it, you won't be able to connect to that resource. It doesn't make any sense. So that's just my little spiel on QR codes. They're a huge fad in libraries. I know that our library, we do use them. We actually embed QR codes within our reference stacks. So when students are looking for an encyclopedia, we'll have the actual printed QR code, and supposedly they can take a picture, and they'll lead them to a subject guide on our website where they can find more information and more resources related to that particular encyclopedia. However, we've looked at usage for it, and it's a big goose egg. No one's using it, which I find is fascinating. But just to move on, now I'm going to talk about mobile websites versus the mobile app. With a raise of hands, does anyone use a mobile site for their institution? Or using a mobile app? Maybe both? Okay, so I'm sure as all of you can tell, these are becoming more prevalent and more useful in higher education, especially in libraries. It's kind of driving some of the things that are going on. Oh, let me go back one moment. I forgot to mention something about some other services that the libraries are using. I'll get back to the mobile apps. But another way that libraries are using mobile devices is roving reference. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's basically, since we're not tethered with a computer, we can go around with an iPad and go up to students and assist them with research. Since they're Wi-Fi enabled, we could go up to the student who looks lost, and we can help them find their reference needs or research needs, and bring up a list of the different databases that we have access to. And the idea is with roving reference is that students can be a little bit intimidated to come up to the reference desk. So why don't we just go to them and bring our services to them, and kind of put them at ease. So that's one of the reasons that a lot of libraries are using mobile technologies. Is you're not tethered to that one spot. You can go into the stacks. You can walk around in the study rooms and things like that and do a reference transaction with students. I know at CUNY, we also have library instruction that uses strictly nothing but iPads for instruction, just so our students can get exposure to that kind of technology as well, which I think is also very important. And just last week, if you bear with me, let me pull up this browser. We also installed iPad catalogs within our library here. This is an iPad catalog that got installed in our library last week. The thing about my library in particular is it's in a very old building. The infrastructure isn't so great. So wiring and electricity is kind of at a premium. But with an iPad, what you can do is you can just charge it before the library opens and just have it out, and students can come up and use this to find books. The other thing is it takes up less space than a traditional desktop computer. And we can, since they're mobile, we can basically put them anywhere in the library. They're placed in these special cases here, so they can be tampered with and they can be taken away. So that's another way that mobile technologies are being used in libraries. Sure. So the question is, did we buy cases for the iPads and put them in different places? And the answer is yes. Right now we have about 5 iPad catalogs. We have 2 floors in the library. We have 3 up in the main stacks, and then 2 more down in the reference area. And one of them is actually closer to the entrance of the library. So students can come up and they can search for books that way. And we've started to introduce this to students at the reference desk. So a lot of our students will be looking for textbooks and things like that, and we'll point them in the direction of the iPad catalog. And so far it's been going really well, and we're still collecting statistics on how well they're being used. Right, exactly. So it's quick lookup stops for books through the iPad catalogs. So let me go back. Oh, something happened. Yeah. Oh, maybe we'll go back. Sorry, I think our image disappeared. I went back to the PowerPoint presentation. Yep. It's okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. So continuing on, let me go back. So mobile websites versus mobile apps. Some of you said you use either or both. And what I'm going to do next is kind of define these two differences. So what exactly is a mobile site? A mobile website is basically a website that can be accessed through a mobile device. It is network dependent. So in order to connect to a mobile website, it kind of makes sense. You have to have Wi-Fi access, internet access to get to that website. It's typically an extension of your current website. And one of the newer ideas behind mobile websites is web responsive or responsive web design. And what that basically means is no matter how you look at a website, either from a desktop computer, an iPhone, or an iPad, or whatever mobile device that you choose, it's basically all going to look the same. What happens is this technology uses different cascading style sheets. So when you connect to the server through that device, it'll select a correct style sheet to present for that website, and it will change and alter the dimensions of the screen and images. It's pretty popular with blogs like WordPress and things like that. To reiterate, these aren't, mobile websites aren't apps. Like I said, you have to connect to them through a normal network. What exactly is a mobile app? That is a piece of software. It runs on your mobile device and is coded specifically for that platform. I'll get into that a little bit later. But users have to download the mobile app, as I said, either through the iTunes store or through the Android market. And that's what's happening. Stepping on the cord. Okay. As I said, going to mobile apps, you don't need a Wi-Fi connection to use a mobile app. But before you really consider the development of a mobile app or website, you have to figure out what are the demands. Why do you need a mobile site? Do your students, are they going to use a mobile site at all? Do they have, is there evidence that they're going to be using those resources and things like that? So it's, before jumping on the bandwagon of developing a mobile website or developing a mobile app, I think it's a good idea to kind of step back and see if what you have is good enough for your students. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't optimize your current website for mobile devices, but I think it's a good idea to figure out if this is something that your institution really needs. And those are some of the questions that our library had as well. Is like, do we really need a mobile website? Do we really need a mobile app? And what was driving the reasoning to go and use these technologies is, yes, students are connecting with these devices at an increasing rate. And not just that, but vendors, electronic databases, they're rolling out all these different kinds of mobile-ready resources. So we want to get those in the hands of our students, and those may not necessarily be accessible through our current website. But I'll talk about that a little bit more. Technology. So what are some differences and similarities between mobile apps and mobile devices? Well, as I said, they're used for, the similarities is that they're used all on this or on your iPad. And there's a growing number of users who are, like I said, using these devices. But But the thing with a mobile app is, you can't view it on a computer. You can view a mobile site on a computer, but you can't install a mobile app onto your machine unless you have like a special emulator or some other way to access that app, through your regular desktop computer. But that's pretty much where similarities end. Is they're used on these mobile devices. So what are some of the differences? Well, as I mentioned before, mobile apps, they use very specific platforms. So if you're going to use a mobile app and roll it out for your users, you have to code a separate iOS or separate iPhone app, and then you have to code a separate Android app as well. And not just that, like I said, you have to submit those programs through those markets, and they have to be approved. So they're coded for very specific platforms. But since they're coded for specific platforms, mobile apps, they take all the resources of your iPhone or your tablet, and they incorporate them all within the app. That's something that a mobile website can't necessarily do. Like a mobile website can't necessarily access your camera, it can't access geolocation and things like that. So that's one consideration that you probably want to make, is that apps, they're tailored specifically for those platforms, but it's because they're using those platforms' resources to their full advantage. Now, on the other hand, mobile websites, they're intended for all. They can be accessed through a desktop computer. They can be accessed through an iPad. They can be accessed through an iPhone. So they can be used through a variety of devices. Let's see. Differences in accessibility. So apps, like I said, they have to be downloaded by the end user. That's not necessarily something that maybe someone wants to do. Going back to the QR code example, even though if you have a mobile app, your students may not necessarily want to use it or download it or install it on their machine. But with a mobile website, you can index it within Google, within a search engine, and they can discover it that way. So that's another argument why I think mobile websites are a little bit better than mobile apps, because you can access them from anywhere. The other problem with accessibility is the updates. I mean, I'm sure you've seen if you have to update your apps, you have to do it pretty regularly. And there's several updates, and you wonder why do I have to update Instagram for the 10th time? And it's because they're rolling out different hardware and different OSs all the time, and they're just kind of keeping up with that. If you use a mobile app that has specific content, you have to go back and think you have to release another update just to update the content within that mobile app. But with a mobile website, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can just go into the page, encode it, and it's updated then and there. There's also specific cost differences between mobile apps and mobile websites. Mobile websites are pretty free. They're cheap. You can code them in-house. You can do it on your own. Whereas with a mobile app, you have to learn a specific language to code that specific app for those specific platforms. And not just that, but you also have to go through that process of getting them accepted into those markets like I mentioned before. So there is kind of like the cost difference in time in creating a mobile app. So let me go back and show you our mobile website just really quickly. What we use to code this website is a program called, or a library called jQuery Mobile. And it's a JavaScript library that was used to code this website. So I actually did most of this on my own, and it was free. It took me like half a day to learn the language and to publish it and get it up and ready. But with a mobile app, I have a friend that owns a mobile app company in Brooklyn, and it takes them like a month to turn out an app. They have to do all kinds of QA testing with it and submit it to Apple. So that's another consideration to make. So there are some cost differences between those two applications. The other thing is web integration between mobile sites and mobile apps. With a mobile site, you just have a link, you click on the link, it goes directly to that page. Whereas with a mobile app, If you notice, if you use like the iPad or the iPhone and you're looking at an app and you click on a link, you have to give it a second because it has to stop, it has to render the page and switch over to Safari to load the page. So there's an extra little step in between that when you're integrating with web integration. And a lot of our resources that we use, they're all on the web, and maybe that's not something that our end users would want to do, is wait for that page to load and switch over. And the other thing is, as I mentioned before, is that when you use a mobile website, they're indexed by the search engine and they can be found. Mobile apps, they don't necessarily have that same kind of discoverability. So between those two, we decided to use, like I said, a mobile app. But now I'm going to tell you some about the beginnings of our mobile website and some of the failures and problems that we ran into. This image is, I think, is a great example of a design failure. Here it's a recycling bin. We have a label for plastic bottles and cans, and then newspapers and magazines, but the holes are switched. So I think that's kind of like a metaphor of some of the design failures that we ran into with our website. So, what are some of our design failures? Well, I have an early incarnation of our website here. This is I think this is the second iteration of our website. It was just a very plain blank page with links to different mobile resources that users could use. But I mean, we had a lot of problems with this website. Basically, when you typed in the URL for our library, it didn't take you directly to this page, even if you were on a mobile device. We didn't have device detection, which is a huge problem. Also, you had to know the URL in order to get to this website. So there were problems on the user's end of things to try and access this resource. Whereas on the librarian side, this is all hand-coded, and only one librarian was responsible for updating this page, which is kind of problematic because we want everyone's input to help create our online presence. So other librarians, if they didn't have the technical skills to update the content, they couldn't get to this page at all and update it. They had to go through another librarian or a college assistant to update this page. So that was a design failure on our site at first. Also, even though this page looks pretty plain, when you look at it from different devices, when we were doing some testing and things like that, things became scrambled. The layout just came out weird, or sometimes the links wouldn't show up, or sometimes they would just fall off the page completely. And that also happened with other earlier incantations of our page as well, with scrambled layouts and graphics not loading and things like that. So this is our initial design flaw. And to go back, like I said, you had to know the URL to actually access this this website. Okay. So I'm just going to go through quickly what we did next. We moved over to the Drupal content management system. It's an open source web system. And we actually moved our whole website and migrated it into this content management system. And we thought this would be a great solution for our mobile website. We could actually download themes and modules. The way that Drupal works is you can get different content and different themes throughout the open source community. There's actually it's a very popular content management system among librarians. And one of our ideas was for a solution for a mobile website was to use Drupal and use the different themes and different kind of modules specifically to load a mobile website through Drupal. The problem is that didn't work out that way at all. We were using Drupal 6, and whenever we tested it on a variety of devices, we had the same kind of problems. Images wouldn't load, the site wouldn't switch over to a mobile site, it would just stay on a desktop version of the site. Content would be missing, layouts would be scrambled, things like that. So that didn't really work for us, so we had to think of another solution of what we could do to try and get around that. But even before we did that, we also ran into other obstacles. Things like lack of user input. We didn't get enough input from our students to really understand what they wanted from a mobile website. We also use a shared catalog. We use Ex Libris's Aleph for our catalog, for our OPAC among the different CUNY campuses. And it's not mobile ready and it's not mobile optimized. So that was another problem that we had, another obstacle that we had to consider when creating a mobile site. Even though we could tailor and make a really nice mobile website, if our catalog wasn't mobile enabled and our students can use it, then our students can use it and they couldn't find their books. So that's another consideration that we had to make. Also, even though the institution I work at, the New York City College of Technology, has the word technology in it, we have a lot of infrastructure problems. We didn't have Wi-Fi until last spring semester, and we just started supporting tablets this semester. Same thing with phones. I'm not even sure if we completely 100% support all the phones that are used on campus. So that's another statistic or another variable that we found in our web analytics is our students were connecting to our website outside of the college. But this was just an external problem that was kind of outside of our control, but it's slowly getting better. One of the problems is just, like I said, we are in a very old building and we have a lot of infrastructure problems. We also have another building, and I feel even more sorry for them because in order for them to get internet access, they connect with a satellite on the top of their roof. So we have a signal and we send it to them. So on a cloudy day, sometimes they don't get broadband access. So that's another problem that we come across. But despite these obstacles, we do also have a lot of success with our new website. We just launched our mobile website sometime over the summer. It was a soft launch. It was that website that I showed you before. And what we did is we changed things up so we could get better device detection. We hand-coded a server-side script so we can determine if the users were connecting to our website through a tablet or through a mobile device. And then we could redirect them to the proper mobile website so they can get to where they're going. We also tested our website on iPads, and we decided that our desktop website was good enough for the iPad, and users actually have the choice to switch between the iPad or switch between the desktop site or the mobile site using their iPad. And we also tried to figure out what exactly our students wanted to use for our mobile website. And what we did is we took a note from Jacob Nielsen, and he's a very famous usability expert. And what he says with the debate about mobile versus full versions of the site is that for the vast majority of tasks, mobile users will get a vastly better user experience from a web-designed mobile site than from a full site. And for a small minority of tasks, mobile users will be slightly delayed by the extra click to the full site. So I guess what he's basically saying is there's a huge gain that's experienced when you comfortably outweigh a small penalty that's suffered very rarely. So we looked at some of the interactions and at the reference desk and some of the most commonly visited services on our website, and we made those very prominent on our mobile website. That includes our hours, finding books, connecting to mobile e-resources, and things like that. So that was one of the bigger problems that we had when we switched over to Drupal 6 and we used those different mobile themes and modules is it loaded the whole full website onto a tiny device and users couldn't find where they were going. So we coded it so it's a little bit easier to get around. Another success we had was we made the URL more friendly to access the website. You can go to m.library.citytech.cuny.edu to reach our mobile site, or you can just add the / mobile to get to the site. And we found that putting that address a little bit easier, just having that mobile subdirectory at the end of our URL actually helps out our students and our users to connect to us a little bit more quickly. And like I said, we tailored our site content. So, how do we measure success when it comes to using our mobile website? Well, we use a variety of different analytical tools to determine how our students are connecting to the website. We use Google Analytics. We also use an open source analytics program called Piwik. We also use another analytics resource called ClickHeat. And all these different things tell us how students are connecting to the website, how long they're using the website, and how many hits the website gets. And what we've seen so far, and even though we just launched our site over the summer is that students are staying longer on our new mobile website, far more longer compared to our old website, our old mobile website. So that's one way that we've been measuring success. We've also measuring success through how many hits we've been getting as well, and what kind of content that our students are pulling. So what is the future for mobile devices and our mobile website? Our mobile website, in the near future, we're going to be doing some usability testing in the next year to see how well our website is using for our students. Because one of the more important things that we want to do is make our website and our resources more user-centric and more user-friendly. We want to get their perspective on how they use our website and what processes they use to get to the information they need. Because we want to make things more efficient for our students. We don't want them to just kind of like, get lost. So we're just kind of trying to make things a lot easier for them. And the only way to do that is to really get their input through usability testing and surveys and asking them what they need. Then also, for the future of mobile technologies, here, this is a screen capture of augmented reality. In case you're wondering what augmented reality is, it's the idea where you can use a mobile device and you can overlay information over what you see. The whole idea behind Google Glasses is kind of behind augmented reality. But this, I believe it's in Europe. This is, I think it's an Android phone. And what they're doing is they're overlaying a map to a real-time image of what they're seeing. So the idea is you can have your camera on your phone, and you can take a picture, and it can show you a map of where to go and what to do. So, that's pretty much the end of my presentation. Is there any questions or anything like that? I can also show you the mobile site. Yes, Pywick. This is actually Pywick. It looks a lot like mobile or a lot like Google Analytics. The question is what other mobile or what other analytic tools that we use. Pywick is open source, and one of the reasons I like using Pywick is for privacy issues. Even though you use Google Analytics, all that data and information is going to Google, and it's stored on Google servers. Whereas Pywick, this is just stored on our server, and we get to see how our students are navigating through Pywick, and it mirrors a lot of the statistics and things that we see in Google Analytics with a little bit more. So they have a little, different options, the different actions. These are the different subdirectories that they're visiting, visitors log, how many hits we're getting, and continuous things like that. The other analytics tool that we use is called ClickHeat. And what that does is it shows a map or an overlay of our web page. Let me see if I can just bring that up. And it will tell you where on your web page, where on your web page that people are clicking the most. So this is an example of ClickHeat. All these blue points, these are where people are clicking. On our website, I would show it to you, but it's through all these different firewalls. But you can see where people are clicking the most. Like here, for instance, people are clicking here the most to download the actual demo, like I just did. And this is all collected in real time. You can sort it by date, by week, by month. And this is how we kind of determined where students are visiting and what they're visiting on our page. And we've been using it for our home page mostly, and also for our subject guides as well.
Because you're doing so much of trying to gather data,
Mm-hmm.
how do you use that data, present that data to someone else in your organization?
That's a good question. Well, basically, we look, for instance, for determining our mobile site, what they're using the most. We'll pull up graph statistics of the most commonly used pages and things like that. The other statistic that we gather information for is what e-resources are using, like databases, what are the most popular, what are being used, the longest, and things like that. And we'll present them in a graph form and kind of easy to understand chart. So people who are not familiar with those kind of statistics get a better idea of what's going on. Yeah.
Are you like trying to get more staff, more money? You're using it to say, here's how we can improve, here's what people are doing.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. It's a good question. So the question is, are we using this for staff, more money, et cetera? When I first came to City Tech, we didn't even have our own server. We had a shared department server with the rest of the college. It was really problematic because they were using an old Windows box to serve up their web pages, and they had all kinds of security concerns. So we didn't have full access to that machine. So what I did was I gathered what statistics I could from that particular server's logs, and I presented them to our provost. And I said, in order for us to provide the library services and to catch up with current library services, we need our own server. So that's pretty much how I use log statistics to persuade my provost for the library to have our own server. And now we do. And since we have our own server, we've installed a blog, we've installed WordPress, we've installed an internal wiki for staff communications, we've installed a subject guides wiki for faculty and student and librarian collaboration, and also all the different kinds of analytic tools that you see here that weren't really possible before with that old server. So we've been using it just to improve our library services, and probably in the future we'll probably use these statistics to try and ask for more server space, because we're actually running out of server space because of all the statistics that we collect. So.
Of the functions that the users can utilize off the mobile site, how many go to another place to do a function, and how many do a function in the mobile site?
So the question is,
Like the information, if it looks for your hours, I'm assuming you're pulling that up on the mobile page.
mhm.
But if they want to do something in the catalog, then take them to the catalog, pick it up on mobile.
Right. So the question is how are users accessing the hours page versus the catalog page?
Just, what things do you send them off to some other
Oh, okay.
place for, or what things do you actually solve in the mobile?
Okay, so the question is, what do we actually solve for our mobile site concerning external links and external services? Well, as I mentioned before, this is the mobile site. If you click here on Find Books, this will take you to our mobile site. But when you search for the actual book, so let's say we're searching for Brooklyn, and we click Search CUNY Libraries, it will actually push you to our Ex Libris Aleph product, which is shared by all the campuses. So it's kind of clunky and ugly and actually a little bit outdated. Some ideas that we've had for the other campuses is to use a skin to actually present this information in a more useful way. If you look at it here, if you've never been to our library, used our catalog before, you don't even get a call number. You have to actually kind of figure out, where do I go for a call number? And you actually have to go over here to availability, and you click on the school's name, and it would pull up that call number. But that's just one resource that we use. We also have mobile-specific links for e-resources. If you're here to find articles, this gets pushed over to all the different mobile-enabled databases that we have. And what you don't find here, you can scroll down, or actually go back, and you can load the full library website and reach the databases that we don't have through that way. And we also have a contact link here. And I think this is just something really little, but there's actually a link, so when you click on this, it'll bring up the telephone. You can call it on your cell phone. And I think that's something a little bit overlooked, but that's some of the information and some of the external places that we're sending our students. Sure, that's fine.
You talked a little bit earlier about text reference,
Mm-hmm.
as well as also using text for pushing search information and bold stuff. So
Right.
two questions. How is text referencing working for you? And how does you work with your library vendor to get hold of pushing
Mm-hmm.
text back?
So the question is, how is text reference working for us, and circ access working for us? To be honest with you, we've just started to pilot text reference, so we haven't actually deployed it yet. We'll probably use Google Voice because it's free, and you can attach a phone number to Google Voice, and you can send text messages through Google Voice. And as I showed you the catalog before, we don't actually have those kind of resources. They've been asked by our students, it'd be great so I can text the call number to myself or get holds or due dates pushed to me through text. But we just haven't been able to serve that yet. What we'll probably do is there's a number of open source solutions that we're going to use. We can try and set up a text server on our web server and deploy that and have that interact with our catalog. But I think that's something further down the line before we can actually do that. I know that as a user of the Brooklyn Public Library, that they actually can do that. They can push text for circulation and things like that. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, if you have any other questions or anything like that, I have business cards. I'm also on Twitter at Junior Tidal. That's all one word. And I also have a blog. So thank you.